Hola clase, esta lección es de capítulo 3, parte 1, gramática, y se llama Mandatos afirmativos y negativos con usted y ustedes. Affirmative and negative commands of usted and ustedes. So this is how to give commands to people other than two, and also to more than one person. So someone that you don't know, or that's an adult, you can still command them using the form usted, and a group of people you can command using the form ustedes. And you guys will actually start to notice once you learn this form that I use the ustedes commands with you guys in class almost every day. To form a command with usted, you just remove the s from a negative to command form. So that means that we need to remember what the negative to command form is. So let's go back to that lesson real quick. Remember that a negative to command, we drop the O of the present tense yo form. So for example, hablo becomes hables, and como becomes comas. So going back to what an usted command or an ustedes command is, we need to lean on our knowledge of what the negative to command was, and then just remove the s from that negative to command. So for example, all we have to do to form a command with usted is remove the s, and with ustedes, we're going to replace the s with the negative to command and add an N. All right, so let's go through that step by step. The verb hablar, the negative to command is no hables. So the usted command is hable. And the ustedes command is hablen. So using that as an example, what would the usted and ustedes command be of the verb caminar? The usted command would be camine, and the ustedes command would be caminen. Here's the verb traer. Now remember, in the yo form, traer is traigo. I drop the O, I add the opposite vowel, so I end up with traigas. Now to form the usted command, drop the s and it becomes traiga. Add an n and it becomes traigan. So what would the usted command of correr be? Let's think about this. The yo form would be corro. I would drop the o, cor, add the opposite vowel, corras. For the usted command, drop the s. And then how about for the ustedes command? Just add an n, corran. Here's another example. This is the verb ir. Now ir is one of the four verbs that when we were doing the negative to commands, I told you that you had to memorize as no vayas. So now to form the usted command, I just drop the s, vaya, and for the ustedes command, I add an n, vayan. Let's practice with the verb escribir. Let's see. Now if I go back to the negative to command, I would start with escribo, drop the o, add the opposite vowel, and now for the usted command, drop the s, and then what would the ustedes command be? Escriban. How about the verb jugar? Well, let's go back to the negative to command. I would start by conjugating in the present indicative, juego, drop the o, add the opposite vowel, juegues. Now for the usted command, I'm going to drop the s. And how about for the ustedes command? What would it be? is this spelled wrong, guys? There we go. That's right. How about the verb ser? That was one of the other 4 that we had to memorize. What was it in the -2 command? You got it? Did you get no seas? All right. Now, what do we do to form the usted command? Drop the S. And how about the ustedes command? Add an N. Now, making usted and ustedes commands negative is really easy. I just add a no before the command. So here's an affirmative command, coma, and here's a negative command, no coma. Here's a negative command in the ustedes form, no salten. So that's pretty straightforward. To make it negative, just add a no before the command. Lastly, we need to talk about pronouns. What do I do with pronouns? We're going to attach reflexive, direct, and indirect object pronouns to the end of the affirmative usted and ustedes commands. In addition, I have to add an accent mark to show that the stress remains in the same place. And then in negative commands, I'm going to add the pronoun between the no and the verb. All right, so let's look at some examples so we can understand that better. If I want to say, take those pills, tomen esas pastillas. So there's the ustedes command of the verb tomar. But if I want to replace the word pastillas with its direct object pronoun, it would be las. So I would attach the pronoun to the end of the command, tomenlas, and I would add an accent mark to show that it's still the same stress in the same place, tomenlas. The verb llevar, the usted command is lleve, such as lleve la receta. But if I wanted to replace the word receta with its direct object pronoun la, I would say llévela. So I attached the pronoun onto the end of the command and I added an accent to show that the stress remains in the same place. Llévela. This also works for reflexive pronouns, such as the verb cepillarse. So the command is cepille, and then I attach the se, and I add an accent to preserve the stress. Cepíllese. Now, in negative commands, we don't attach. We put the pronoun between the no and the verb. For example, no le pidan dulces. Don't ask him or her for sweets. And here's the ustedes command with a pronoun attached because it's affirmative. Pídanle fruta. Let's do a couple more verbs to practice. If I had the verb traerlo, to bring it, what would the usted command be? Well, there's a few steps here. Let's go back to -2 commands. I have to start with the yo form of the present indicative, traigo. Remove the o, add the opposite vowel. No traigas would be the -2 command. And then, to get the usted command, I just remove the s. Now, I want to attach the pronoun tráigalo. And then I need to add an accent to preserve the stress. What would the ustedes command be of this same thing? We just add an N, right? Tráiganlo. How about if I wanted to make these negative? I would put the pronoun between the no and the verb. No lo traiga, and for ustedes, no lo traigan. How about a reflexive verb like bañarse? What would the usted command be? Well, we've got to start with what the yo form would be, right? Baño, drop the O, add the opposite vowel, so that gives me the -2 command. Drop the S, banye, and then I want to attach the pronoun, banyese. Now what's wrong with this? Why did it tell me it's spelled wrong? Oh yes, because I need to add the accent to preserve the stress. Now how would I turn this into an ustedes command? Almost the exact same thing, right? Bañense. What if I wanted to tell somebody to not take a bath? What would I say? No se bañe. And then a group of people? What would the ustedes command be if it was negative? No se bañen. All right. I know that this was kind of a difficult concept compared to some other ones that we've done in the past, but I promise we're going to practice this more in class and you guys will nail it. Hasta luego.